when you realize that it's a big problem, we can live with that because it looks like, you know, I've talked about it so much. So I feel like I should just relax on that and let it go. Because this lacks so if I were to talk about the literature review grading itself, the maximum that this would get is like 4 out of 10 because it lacks the discussion around the technology. But the format is not a problem. So this is the methodology. So the architectural design, coding, such. The figure needs to be labeled. I have always emphasized that. So you say this is waterfall methodology. Waterfall methodology steps or something like that. And then it makes sense to have that centered so that it is in the right place. So the diagram is centered and that's it. And this is not the waterfall. The diagram has a mistake because the current waterfall structure is that it also allows iteration. And then you must have somewhere where you have talked about this figure. So you have said that as shown in figure something, so that the figure is not 40. So figure 3.1 shows the steps in waterfall model or methodology or something like that. So you need to say something about the figure so that it is not just a figure. So these are sentences, not important. I want a paragraph, a discussion. So this is okay. Same case applies to labeling here. We need that to be labeled as well. Same case applies to here, labeling. But in terms of content, you seem to have discussed the content I'm looking, only that the formatting issues are there. So on this part, this one I would give it a 6 out of 10. Requirement gathering is another one. So users, administrator, customer, initial functional requirements, data gathering, interview, advantages. The moment you start writing for me this, when I don't need it, then you start being prisoners on that because as I agreed, that's the here. You need to discuss them. You need to discuss them. So that waters so many things. So what system? So questionnaire used. Here, like I said, I need a at this stage we need a so at this stage, like you have said, we need you to. So these are the questionnaire used. What kind of improvement you have seen the system? How do you engage with the staff member? So I imagine that this is a student who is a bit behind because these are the questionnaire that I said you need now to have given to the given ahead. This the questionnaire used. I would rate them. I would rate them average. No, below average. Sorry, below average. Maybe something like that. They don't look so creative. They don't look so creative. But this document, I would not throw time on it. I would say Duncan Jerry has tried a bit. Not a document that I would say I'm disappointed with it. It's not such a bad document as such. Here there is another one. This is supposed to be Sylvester Tambo. Sylvester Tambo would want me to spend the whole day talking about the issue of formatting the first page. This is overview. This is a proposal. Proposal, we don't put it here. Like I said, proposal should be the last item that comes now. We will add it as the last item. We'll have it as the last item. So that is yeah, that is the first section I want to see here is the literature review. This is where our work begins. This proposal should be the last, should be Appendix A, should be Appendix A. So a discussion, let me check. Yeah, the student has talked about heuristic, has talked about the rules by Nelson. Not so comprehensively done, but better than the, in terms of technique, in terms of technology, better than the first person, but not maybe 6 around there, considering the capability. So then we have waterfall discussion around that. Good. I have said you need to label your figures. You don't start talking about avoid the use of I choose, no. Avoid I. So agile methods, you have just mentioned it, so it's incomplete. So the next one is requirement analysis. This one I said should come as almost the last item, data gathering. Okay, the questionnaire do not look like they are so bad. It's after you do analysis that you come up with a, so I need to see an analysis of the questionnaire. I need to see an analysis of the questionnaire before you come with a use case diagram. Label your figures. You say that this is supposed to be a use case diagram for what? There's a price to that. You need to see it labeled. This content you have always agreed should be 1.5. Label here, label the figure. And this formatting, make sure that here you're also using the Times New Roman. And then you have some text that is not dated. I see some that is not dated. Somewhere I've seen somewhere that is not dated. Anyway, this one is not also so bad for sure. There are things that you can improve. There is an improvement, but the student is still behind what I'm looking for. Higher. So unless the two students have or anybody else has a question around that, I want to go to what next? What is expected next of you? Unless somebody has a question. So I've said the proposal that you did should come just after these references, should be here as appendix, as appendix A. This is where you put that proposal that you had, not at the beginning. So that is very important to note. Any questions so far on that work, on any issue related to this before I go to the next one? So we ask if you could kindly look through our work. No, the time is an issue. I cannot do everything. I just want you to, when I look at two, next time maybe I look at yours. So you go ahead and continue working. The truth is that once you submit here, I'll look at them before I grade everything. But the document includes what you have done now and what you have done next. So that is not the reason why you should not be able to complete. Time issue is a big one. The issue is that it doesn't stop you from working. You can still continue working and doing the jobs and such, and then I'll be able to see. Maybe the only thing I would say is that there are some areas that there are some jobs that the reason why I say there are some jobs that can be used as examples of terrible work is like what we have from this one here. This is from Hope. Terrible work. Hope we'll have to improve. This is the topic of study. That one I said poor formatted. This one is the literature system methodology. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Everything there is terrible. So I wouldn't argue with that. The other one is who. So there are some jobs that are badly off, very bad, that you need to improve. And really, when you also upload a PDF, then it becomes difficult for me to even look at it. So this is another one from Daniel Mwangi. So you see, when I show that, I expect it to improve even if this is Daniel Mwangi, system analysis, issue functional requirements, poor production. So it doesn't contain everything I want. And I said I need the whole document. You are going to do it cumulatively. So I see some questions there. Can you explain post-codation and pre-codation? Now, although this is a section you are supposed to have covered when you did the unit on system analysis and design, but just to support to explain what that means on the post precodation is, when we talk of precodation, is what must be true before a user starts using your system. What is that must be true before the user starts using a system? So for example, if it's an ATM, for the user to be able to use an ATM, they'll need, the precondition is that the user has an ATM card and they also have a password. So that's when now they will be able, because they need to insert it, they need to enter the password. So what needs to be true before, and then what needs to be true after they have done the job, after the whole system has done. So it could be for an ATM after the user has used. Let me just give you some materials, some ideas that can help you on that nature. So I have some link that does a very good job on that. So sharing the link on the chat. So I've shared the link on the chat, but this is the link here. So the precondition and the post-condition. So precondition are tests that must prove true before the use case is allowed to proceed. However, unlike assumptions that are handled by another use case, preconditions are checked by the use case that contain the precondition. For example, verify that the required parameters are passed and valid, something like that. Then post-condition requires that after themselves so that the subsequent processes are not corrupt. Post-condition identify the items that are use case must handle before terminating. Sometimes those activities may be part of the normal and the exceptional flow. Other times they are not added. And here is an example of a template. So the user starts, so condition that must be true before the use case executes. So like, for example, you have a username, you have a card, or something like that. Condition that must true before the user exits. So the user maybe has removed the ATM card. That is a post condition. So and this shows the example. Post condition. It gives ideas around the way you can write it. So you can use this as an example. So that is the question. So the next part, I have not seen anybody who has finished the issue of the whole requirement. But the next part is systems design. So system design, you will have an introduction. So introduction, we will talk about what this is all about. But of course, I need to give you the content so that you have materials to add to the unit. So the first part is about the idea of database design. So usually, when we are doing this, most of you will have systems that have some level of data to be stored. You have some data to be stored. So what we do here, we design the database. So we design the database. Usually we use the approach that starts with the A. You have the conceptual model. So the conceptual model is the ERD. So you have an ERD, entity relationship diagram, that shows the entities and the way they are related. Then after that, you have the logical model. So this is, I'm depending here on your unit. The unit I'm depending on here is what you did on ICS 2206, database systems. Which is a course that I believe all of you did. So you have the concept, the ERD, then you have the logical model is enhanced entity relationship diagram. And then you have the physical, you have the physical model. So here we are talking about now coming up with the database diagram. So, and the database diagram, you generate them mostly using, you create using a certain DBMS. So the database diagram I'm talking about is the final output is something that looks like this. So the database diagram, this is what I'm saying, looks something like this, that includes the table and the relationship. You don't have to include this part. The part that I want is only this diagram here, the database diagram. So it is already implemented in a DBMS. So this is the database. So once that is done, the next one is user interface. So for the user interface design, what we are looking at is the design of the way the interface will look like. So there are so many tools that you can use. Mockup screen can be used for that. You can also make use of wireframes. I believe wireframes can be used. So what I mean is that you have tools like drawing that can help you in achieving that, just to share that. So this is the drawing part, sharing the chart. And you have several diagrams that you can draw depending on what you want. So wireframes are here. You can draw wireframes for whatever tool you want. Like say, if it's that, you just say create, and you can start looking at the way your site will look like, or the way pages will look like, and the way you can change various things about it. So this gives you an idea of the way the user interface will look like, right? The way the user interface will look like. So you start designing using, this is free, and many other tools. In fact, if you Google for, if you go online and you Google for, if you Google for wireframes, sorry. If you Google for wireframes, you should be able to get a lot of tools around it that can help you in designing. Then, once you have your user interface, so what I'm expecting is that the user interface, don't put a lot of content on the user interface. So have, like, say, maybe 4 pages or that shows the wireframe, only 4, not a lot of content, not pages and pages. And then also each page should be accompanied by discussion on why. So why would the home page, why do you want the home page to look like that? And what is the inspiration? The last one is the system design itself. So here we expect you to talk about things like, for example, depending on, so there are 2 approaches. If you're using an object-oriented approach, and this is what most of you have done in object-oriented system and design, a course that you must have done also. So in object-oriented approach, the idea is that you are able to discuss things like class use case diagram, class diagram, sequence diagram, and such, activity diagram, and so on. So if you're going to use an object-oriented programming language such as Java, C#, and such, C# and such, then you can use an object-oriented approach. Otherwise, you can use just a procedural approach or structured approach. So in structured approach, the documents that can help you are DFD. So this one is what you did in a course called SAD, System Analysis and Design, which I believe that all of you covered in second year. So you have data flow diagrams. You also have things like flowcharts, sitemap, and all that. Those are the things that I expect from here. So this should be able to show the way the data would flow in your system, the way the information will flow in your system for flowchart, and the way your site will look like. And of course, for the site, do not go past the depth of 3. So 3 is the depth that I'm expecting. So that is as far as what I'm expecting from your work is. Please take note of all those ideas. And then the last part is conclusion. So once you have all those sections, then you have the conclusion of your work. Any question? Any question?